How many of you caught the lie that our honorable minister, David Umahi, lied on national TV? How many of you caught that lie? Here is the lie. And what makes it very painful is that it's not the fact that he's a minister. He's a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. Fellow. In fact, fellow of Koren, if I'm not mistaken. And then he comes to national TV and tells a big, fat lie. As if nothing happened. He didn't even flinch. With a straight face, he told that lie. How do I know he told that lie? I'll play it to you now. But why do we need to point out these kind of things? We cannot continue to keep quiet in the face of this kind of attitude from elected officials. You tell me, will it be okay for our children to be watching and then we see this kind of highly placed government official telling lies on public TV, on national TV? And then what are we supposed to teach our children? Are we supposed to keep quiet and let it slide? In fact, in more civilized climes, Umahi should be prosecuted for these lies that he told. In fact, it's not one lie, several lies. But let's pick them out one after the other. First of all, he said this.
Let me say this and make it very clear, and before God I serve. Mr. President never had anything to do with the procurement process.
And he used the name of God to lie. That pains me the most. That pains me the most. Because he knows that Nigerians believe in God. And I am sure that he deliberately did that to fool Nigerians. And that's deceptive. That is an act unbecoming of a minister. Not to talk of a minister of his caliber.
Let me say this and make it very clear, and before God I serve. Mr. President never had anything to do with the procurement process.
How many of you remember that question of cost per kilometer that Rufai asked our minister of, our honorable minister, about the cost of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway? How many of you remember that question? Cost per kilometer.
Cost per kilometer.
You have not started permanent work.
Cost per kilometer. Minister,
and
cost
this is what
per
you are
kilometer.
Doing to
cost per kilometer. Just give me the number. Cost per kilometer in these first 30 kilometers. Quickly, Minister. Cost per kilometer.
Well, Senator Umahi, I will go ahead with my question. Cost per kilometer, that can be communicated elsewhere, outside morning show.
Umahi was reluctant to answer that question of cost per kilometer. He was reluctant. Would it not have been better if he left that question unanswered than for him to answer it and lie? Even though we have Freedom of Information Act that we can use to get those kind of information, he could have just kept quiet. But then he went ahead to say this about the cost per kilometer.
And I had run the value for money, and I had made it clear that a kilometer, cost 4 billion. But if you look at the cost, of the coastal highway and compare it to the cost of some of the inherited projects, like the LMA we are constructing, 30 kilometers, 156 billion. Okay. So I can beat my chest and say, look, the LMA costs more. The Abuja Kano costs more, as inherited. The Bodo Boni costs more as inherited.
Then after saying 4 billion per kilometer for the first 47.47 kilometer of the coastal highway, mind you, that road is about 700 kilometers long. 700 from Lagos to Calabar. 700. But the first section of that road is what he was referring to when he said it is 4 billion naira per kilometer. But then again, he went on to say this.
So I ran the figures. Rufai, the first 47.47 kilometer of the Section 1 Coastal Highway was awarded at 1.068 trillion.
From this answer now, that shows you that that first section is actually awarded at the rate of, not at the rate, was awarded for 1.068 trillion naira for 47.47 kilometer with everything in it. What does that bring the cost to? It brings the cost to construct 1 kilometer to what? Now, don't mind you, the cost of the construction of this per kilometer is inclusive of everything. The carriageways, the railway in between, the gutters, the trees, and the street lights, all of those things come in the cost per kilometer. Now, what does that now tell you? If you divide 1 trillion by 47 kilometers, will it give you 4 trillion? Will it give you 4 billion naira per kilometer? Do the math, because from my end, it didn't. It came to about 22 billion naira per kilometer. 22 billion naira per kilometer. Now, you want to argue and say, oh, it's just for the road. It does not include the gutter. It does not include this. Are you trying to tell me that the cost of the gutters and the whatever it is that is fringe, that is just small addition to the heavy cost of the road, is over 18 billion naira more expensive than the cost of the road? This is a lie that our Honorable Minister for Works told. Shameful, but he told that lie. Now, here is another thing that he said that I find very annoying as a citizen.
Let me say this and make it very clear, and before God I serve. Mr. President never had anything to do with the procurement process.
Are you talking to fools in Nigeria, people who are not educated? What is the essence of the Federal Executive Council meeting? So you want to say that you presented that bill, that memo, at the Federal Executive Council, and the president that presides over that meeting did not have any input, and he just awarded a contract for several trillions of naira without any input? Come on, Mr. Minister. This is not honorable. Now, here's another one that I think you should be prosecuted for. You said you invited High Tech to come and do the job because they had done a fantastic job before. And you were not wrong, because even at the launch or the commissioning of the first section, 47 kilometers out of 700 kilometers, the president himself said this about it, that he did it with High Tech. They tamed Lagos together. And guess who the owner of High Tech is? Shaguri himself. Now, how coincidental is it that you have a multi-trillion naira contract that is awarded to the friend of the president, presented at the Federal Executive Council, and the president had no input, and you awarded it solely to High Tech, and you are coming to sing praises for High Tech? And in doing so, don't you see that you have confessed to breaching Nigeria's Public Procurement Act?
Mr. President never had anything to do with the procurement process. There are 3 definitive procurement processes, and the first one is, total restrictive procurement process. And what it is that if you have a job to build an aeroplane now in Nigeria, and you have only one person who had built that kind of aeroplane, you can, call him to negotiate with the person, and then, give the job to the person. And of course, you have to consider what such plane is being built outside the country, and then bring the cultural, factor and the location factor into play. And so when we were to do this coastal highway, we looked at who is the person working with Mr. President when he was governor of Lagos State, who tamed the Atlantic Ocean. And so we looked at who is that company that tamed the Atlantic Ocean and turned the menace into Greece, where we have a wonderland that could be compared to Dubai, the Eco-Atlantic. And what came to our mind was High Tech. And so we now invited high-tech under restrictive procurement for sections 1 and 2. And that's what we did.
But then again, you went on to say, oh, high-tech was called because you were doing restricted bidding. Have you read the Procurement Act? Have you read it at all? That you cannot do restricted bidding and call only high-tech? You can't do that. You breached the Procurement Act, and that is 5 years in prison. You should be prosecuted for it. We will do a petition on this one. You must answer for it. You must. This cannot continue. You know, people like Umahi, and there are many of them, majority of the politicians in Nigeria now, they don't care about telling truth on TV anymore. They don't. Because they feel like Nigerians will not bother. But let me tell you, on this one, me, I will bother. I will bother. You must be prosecuted for this. And if found culpable, you should go to jail for it. Somebody might laugh and say, oh, minister, no. Look, these people, yes, they feel they are above the law, but they still hide behind the law. You hear him talking about following the Procurement Act, but it is clear that from his statement alone, he breached it. So it is for us to bring it up. Talk to the Senate committee, talk to the EFCC, talk to ICPC, even go to court, get an order of mandamus, and make sure that he's prosecuted. Let us shine light on it and show to the whole Nigerians how a minister came on national TV and told lies. There is another lie that I will show to you. This one is with the Ministry of Trade and Investment. These people are lying, but their lies have gone on for too long. We cannot take it anymore. It is because of this that we have decided to set up Law Patrol. We need to enforce the rule of law. Because without the rule of law, we don't have a society. What we will have is what we have now. And Thomas Hobbes described it many, many hundreds of years ago. That when there is no rule of law, life is nasty, brutish, and short. Is that not what we have in Nigeria? So if we will have a society that works, everybody must respect rule of law. Everybody must follow due process. Whether you are a president, whether you are a minister, no matter who you are, you cannot be seen to be flouting the law. When you do that, you destroy the fabric of society. You destroy what makes a society a society. And before you know it, society breaks down. DSS, please take note of this. This can break down security in Nigeria. So we must take action. On this one, concerning Umahi, later we are going to the Ministry of Trade and Investment.